The times they are changing, and in times of change, we can either adapt or we can crumble. For your business, one of the most important things that you can do at this time is to build resiliency into every aspect of your business so that it is positioned to thrive in the face of change, but also to lead that change. This is key. This is what you're here for. So our business models, they are changing. The expectations of business are changing. The needs for within society for the role of business is changing, and we can either respond to that and lead it, or we can deal with the fallout of those changes as they happen. But make no mistake, there are people looking for someone to lead that change, to give an indication of what direction are we going in? What is it that we're going to be doing? How are things going to change? What do I need to do? How do I need to respond, both as an entrepreneur and as a consumer and a customer of businesses? What am I looking for? There's so much in transition at the moment that people are looking for that. It is the perfect opportunity for you to step up and say, yeah, there is a different way, and I'm going to show you how it's done. And that'll give people the opportunity to make their own decisions and their own choices around how they navigate and move forward through this change. One of the things that I can see happening already is that marketing is stopping working, and that's going to progress faster and faster. Things that worked 5 years ago have very little traction now. Things that worked a year ago are already beginning to struggle, because people's expectations of what they want to do and how they want to function around other businesses are changing fast. If you go back 5 years ago, the information culture was strong, and there was information flying around, and your inbox would have been full of freebies here, there, and everywhere, and you would have had ebooks to download. And now you are almost certainly much more discerning about who you give your information to and what information you download, because you know that you are not going to consume it in the way that you might once have done. But those people who are still in that field of depending upon information culture in order to promote their businesses, one of the things that they now accept is not a high conversion rate. They accept, as part and parcel of that, high churn rates, high unsubscribe rates as part and parcel of their business model. So they're going big and bigger and bigger and bigger in order to get fewer and fewer and fewer people. But they are wedded to that model. But that's part of the change that is happening. And people are more discerning, they are asking more questions, and they are have completely different expectations of us as businesses. And we can either respond to that and be the ones that they come back to, or we can choose to stick our heads in the sand a bit, or wait to see how the picture clarifies, and run the risk of really sort of falling behind at that point in time, because it's very difficult to respond on the back foot, which is when you are in reactive mode, you are always on the back foot. So you have the opportunity here to lead that change. People are looking for leaders to signal the way, the direction. They are actively looking for that, even if they can't articulate it yet. And resiliency is preparing to embrace that change. And it's as simple as that, in terms of your willingness and readiness to embrace change is a defining energetic characteristic of your ability to be resilient and to thrive. Being ahead of the curve on the change means that your business is positioned to thrive. It's positioned to be seen as a leader, and it's positioned to be agile and adept to making changes. So it's a degree of prescience and acceptance that change is coming, and therefore I see it, and therefore I'm going to respond to it. I'm going to prepare for it. So that's an important aspect of your future business health, is preparing now by building in resiliency to your business. Now, you are inevitably delivering your business from a place of purpose, of having a real sense of purpose about what your business is here to do. And the thing about having purpose is that you really, really, really want to keep moving with it. It is beyond frustrating to get into stop-start mode. We've all experienced it. And you know, your business, there you are, you're just like primed to move forward, and your business gets into stop-start mode and you can't find that rhythm. And the lack of preparation of resiliency amplifies that stop-start, because you know the things around you change, and you don't have in that moment, you don't know why things are changing, or you haven't put the a focus on where change is coming from, and therefore you aren't in a position to respond to it. So you're always a little bit, as I said, on the back foot. And what we need to be doing this time is actually envisioning the change that is coming and envisioning our response to it. And from another perspective, building in resiliency is about claiming your power. It's about claiming your sovereignty and saying, this is my path. This is the path that I'm going to walk. It's not being shown a path to walk. It is creating your own path. And that is hugely empowering for you, but it's also hugely empowering for your business and everyone that your business connects with and touches. So many people will continue to fight change. If you take something like climate change, for example, it is self-evident that there is a problem we need to address. But that doesn't mean that people won't fight tooth and nail to refuse to see it or to refuse to respond to it until they've got a better picture, etc. But fighting change in that way isn't helpful to anyone. It's not helpful to the people who are resisting it, and it's not helpful to us as a collective. So enabling that change to come into play, enabling that energy of change to be a part and parcel of what we are experiencing is really important in terms of being a conscious business, and having conscious principles that you are actively engaging with and bringing into the world. And in building resiliency into your business, you are really stating that you have prescience of this change and the direction you're going to take in the face of it, so that you're going to be responsible and actively engaging in the process of change in order to improve things. Now, often when we are in a space of change, people intuitively understand that that's where we are, but they cannot articulate a response to it. They cannot put into words what they know. So when you step into a space of leading that change and of having that resiliency in place, then you are saying, I know what is coming. This is the direction. And that's what I mean about people are looking for someone to be that leader. That's what you do when you actually claim that space and claim that prescience and know what you're going. You are building in you're building in an energy that people are naturally drawn to and want to move with. So how can you prepare your business for resiliency in this moment? Well, there's some simple questions that you can ask yourself and really, really deeply sit with in order to start to plan to be resilient. And it is an evolving process. It's not something you can say, right, I have everything now in place and I am going to move with this and I am never going to deviate from it, because the situation is constantly changing. And there will be things that come up that mean that you need to adjust your plan. You need to adjust how you've built in resiliency and work on that. So there's lots of things that you need to be agile in it. There are things that you can really start to put into place now. And it starts with questioning yourself. So one of the things, the starting point for me is around your values, because the change is going to challenge your values. Now, it may be challenging you to rise to an opportunity. It may be challenging you to state your values more strongly, or it may actually challenge the values that you hold. So there's some work to do to think about, okay, what change is coming? And how do I envision that my business can respond to that? How can you step up to that change and that challenge, or how can you step out of the way of it? Which, might be a very valid pathway that you choose to take. So there's really sitting with your values and what they're going to look like in the space of this change, and the challenge that comes with it is a very critical starting point for this process. The role of business in society is one of the things that is definitely shifting. So we've had this business model which is predicated on profit over everything. And it has been about your bottom line is being the measure of success, the measure of whether or not a business is doing well. That is going to change. And we are going to come at business from much more of a conscious standpoint. So conscious principles are around how we are collaborating with people, with planet, how we are choosing to be very conscious of what we do and how we do it, so that we are doing no harm, that we are supporting and being very proactive through our businesses in the world and creating positive change with our businesses. That's a key principle. So the question for you is, how is your business engaging in conscious principles now? And how can it do more of that? Because there's always more that we can do and more that we can explore. So there's plenty open to you to build and strengthen that aspect of your business and create the resiliency that comes with that. I don't think anyone can ignore the impact of their business on the environment. And some of us often have businesses that seem to have a very light touch on the environment. Because we're working online, we are working remotely, we're working with people around the world, so we're not actually traveling a great deal. We've not got no commute. We've got, there's, so on the face of it, we have very limited in terms of our resources that we require. So on the face of it, it feels like that there's not much of an impact on the environment, but there are certain things that we can definitely do that are a very profound statement of how we want to connect to the environment through our businesses and how we want to respect the environment through our businesses. To give you an example of that, I have always chosen to have an internet host who was using renewable energy to power their servers. That's been really important to me, but I had to change hosts a little while back. What I didn't realize was when they were then bought out was that they were bought out by somebody who had an even stronger credentials on that, and actually turns out that they use proper renewable energy, because not all renewable energy is really that renewable. They use proper renewable energy, and they also have a commitment to plant a lot of trees. Now, that's kind of important. I was going to go back and challenge them on this. I read it very, very carefully, what they do with their tree planting, because what we have in the UK at the moment is a lot of big companies buying up large tracts of farmland in order to do tree planting. And they don't care what trees they're planting, and they're doing a lot of damage to the pasture and the soil. Now, the soil, what we're beginning to really understand now is that pasture and grasslands is actually potentially bigger carbon sink than tree planting, particularly if you plant non-native species, which is what a lot of the tree planting activities have been. So if somebody says to me they want to plant 1 million trees a year, then I have to go, well, is it an appropriate place? So I had to read very carefully what they were doing with that. Had they been doing what some of these big companies are doing and just buying up tracts of land, which is actually harmful, then I would have challenged them on it. But actually, it turns out they were doing it very, very consciously. And so I was like, that's great. Now I know that I don't wish to move hosts, and I can actually, that's strengthen my principles. The other things that, you can think about is, what resources do you use, and how are they created? One of the things I wanted to say about, give an example of that is around coconuts. So many people are not aware of the issues around animal welfare and coconut harvesting. So if you are, you'll know that particularly in Thailand, but it does happen in Sri Lanka as well, which are the two, certainly in this neck of the woods, the two main areas where we get our coconuts from. Well, they have, there's an appalling thing where monkeys are abused and they have to pick thousands of coconuts, about 1,000 coconuts a day. They are cruelly, cruelly treated. Now, most coconut oil producers and coconut product producers, oh my God, you know what I mean. They dodge the issue. They will not say whether or not their coconuts are monkey friendly. There are two companies in the UK that I've come across who have made a very strong statement that they have certified all of their coconut products to be monkey friendly. Now, that's building in resilience. That's a really good example of building in resilience, because most people aren't aware of this yet, but they'll get to be aware of it. And when they get to be aware of it, they are going to be looking for those companies that are saying, I am definitely monkey friendly. And it took me a bit of doing to go find these two, but there are two companies that I know guaranteed monkey friendly. So that's something, that's what I'm talking about. That's an example of what I'm talking about. And obviously it's very product based, but we can do the same thing. So if you are taking the cheapest host, to go back to my previous example, if you're taking the cheapest host for your internet because that's what you can afford at the moment, you need to perhaps start to think about, how can I transition into something that I consider to be fitting my values better down the line. So that's the sort of decisions that we need to be taking now to be building resiliency in at this point, so that we're in a position to be ahead of the curve down the line when those changes come into place. So that's why I say the first thing you can do is start to think, what changes can I see coming and how are they going to challenge me and what am I going to do about it? A similar thing would be about, how do we relate to people? So there are so many examples of slave labor, child slave labor, in the way that in all of our products. I mean, we can't get away from it. You buy a phone and the battery is likely got heavy metals mined by children in the Congo in it, and there's no alternative. So it's like, how do you square that particular circle? And that's really hard. But there are companies who take a very strong stand on what that means. So for example, I buy my bulk staples from a company who is a living wage employer, not a minimum wage employer. They pay their staff a living wage, but they also make sure that tracks down their supply chain. So all of their suppliers have to be paying a living wage as well. And that goes all the way back to the people who are picking the cashews or whatever. Now that's really important to me. And it's the sort of thing that we can think about in terms of, who do we get to supply us in our businesses, and what are their credentials, and how do they treat people, how do they treat the environment? These are things that we can be looking at. And although that seems like not a very proactive thing to be doing in terms of what we're doing, but it's about reinforcing the direction of change. It's about reinforcing the energy of change that we're seeking to support. Another aspect that I personally think is extremely important is community. So one of the questions that you can ask yourself is, how is my business building community, and how could it build community? Whatever that means to you. So that might be a community of interest, it might be a community of place, but it's that feeling of community, that feeling of connection and connectedness that is so important to us all. The connection to each other, the connection to nature. So it might well be that you feel that you are building a community and connecting people into nature. So those are, that's all very valid, but it's what can you do? What are you doing now, and what can you do down the line to build more community? Part of my vision for business down the line and into the future, and hopefully not that distant future, is that the business will be part of our ecosystem. It'll be part of our life support systems. So that's kind of difficult at the moment to really understand, because it's such a novel concept that we haven't got any sort of necessarily concrete examples of that, but people are beginning to shift in that direction. So some questions you can ask yourself is, what could you do now? what could you do in the future? You may not be able to access what you could do in the future just at the moment, but you can start to have some ideas about that. And that again is building resiliency. And because those that can demonstrate that are going to be in a very strong position moving forward. Now, I have a client that I've been working with for a number of years who depends upon the environment for their products, and they depend upon a healthy environment for their products. They can't actually make their products unless the place that they collect from, based on plants, unless the place they collect from is healthy. So they have a vested interest in making sure that the environment is healthy, that that there's no air pollution, that the land and the soil are healthy. And that's the sort of thing, these are a very good example of direction that we're heading in. And they have always been ahead of their time in terms of the way that they think about their business. So all their employees are local to the community, and their business model is regenerative, basically. So these are things that we can start to sort of explore, and create will open a space for to come into our awareness, to come into our ways of working and start to explore. So that to me is a classic example of building resiliency into your business now, because it's foreseeing the direction of travel and what you can do to meet it and to thrive within it. And that I think that one of the most important things is really engaging with the energy of change. And if we are engaged with the energy of change, then we're in a much stronger place than we would be if we were resisting it. And resistance is futile, and it's actually, from a business point of view, it's plain daft. It's sabotaging your business to be resisting change. But so there's plenty that we can do to really embrace that energy of change and go with it and flow with it, and be open to what more our business can do and how our business can adapt. That's actually really powerful frame of mind to be in, when you know that change is coming, and change is always coming. But when big change is coming, as it is, I mean, we can all feel it. The big shifts are coming. We can't continue the way that we have been doing it, and we know that those of us who have small businesses are going to be leading the way, because we have the ability to be resilient. You look at some of these big corporations, they do, for them to shift and change gear, change direction, it's massive, it's huge. It will take them years. It can take you 30 minutes to make a complete transition and change. So there's power in our ability to be really agile, and that's something that I think we should really embrace and celebrate. So you're in a position to lead change. So there's just two. I'm just want to recap and say that there are two areas that it's worth you just really sitting with now to begin that process of building resiliency. And the first is, what can you see coming? That's the big question. What can you see coming? Because what I can see coming, is what I can see coming. And that's because I have the perspective that I have. You've got a different perspective, so you can see something else coming, and you can see a different nuance to it, even if it's not. If it might be the same thing, but you'll still have a different nuance to it. So, what can you see coming, and how do you want to respond to that? I mean, how are you responding to that at the moment? I mean, does it make you feel scared, or does it make you feel excited? Because if you can shift into, this is an opportunity, not a threat, then that gives you an ability to just flow with it and be really open to that change. So what can you see coming, and how do you want to respond to it, is the first place that you can start with that. And the second thing is, how can you bolster your values? How can you reinforce your values? What can you do now to really move and sort of reinforce those values with every decision that you take? That's one of the key things. And I think you can sort of say, when you are thinking about your decision making, you can employ and use that principle of the 7-generation principle that I think it's the Hopi Indians use, the Hopi community. Is that what they're called? It's the groups, the group of the tribes. They use the 7-generation principle. So they are sort of like, what is the impact of a decision I make today on 7 generations down the line? And when we start to shift into that thinking, then we are really thinking about the sustainability and the positivity that we're bringing through our decision making, and it's throwing a light on any any negative impacts. And if we know what they are, but we still need to make a decision now, then at least we can work out whether or not they're too big a risk, too big an impact, or it's something we can mitigate. So, kind of, it's a principle that we can start to employ that allows us to really focus in on our values and then bolster our values, and really put them into work every single day in every single decision that we make. So employing this frame of mind, this process, in asking yourself questions, being open to change, what it's going to do is going to put you in a position to lead change, to come out the other side a bit stronger, and still in a place where you have an embedded way of being in your business. That means that you're constantly open to change and you're constantly open to adapting. This is where innovators thrive. This is where you have the ability to thrive and to lead and to constantly be ahead of the curve, and giving people those signals of the directions of change, and not being afraid to turn on a dime, or as they say, when there is a need to, and to look in a different direction for the path to growth, or the path to thriving and flourishing. So there's lots open to you by cultivating a slightly different mindset, and finding it within yourself to embrace change, and desiring to create resiliency for your business, so that your business is able to flourish and thrive and survive through whatever life throws at it.